I'm Dr. Lisa Roberts, and I started with Coco's December of 2021. I'm in charge of setting the medical protocols for the clinic. Every single day that I come to work, I'm helping these animals that have been discarded, have been pushed aside, have been given up because of either medical conditions or just because they weren't wanted in the first place. Just being able to do everything that we possibly can do under the sun for them is just amazingly and incredibly rewarding for me. And the first one I'll mention is McGregor. He'd been wandering around for, I don't know, weeks or something. This dog, you could see every single bone in his body. You could see his hip bones, you could see his ribs, you could see all of his vertebra. He had no body fat, he had no muscle. He was very much at risk of starving and freezing to death quite imminently had we not been able to take him in at that time. His body temperature was so low that they actually had to wrap him in warm blankets to try and warm him up. He's starting to get sores on all of the points of his bones just because his skin was so fragile and he had no padding between his bone and his skin that whenever he laid, he would get a sore there. Just watching him go from this dull, dry coated, his eyes were just dull and sad, to this vibrant, healthy, happy dog, you know, rolling on the couch at home, playing with the other dogs. It was probably one of the more rewarding dogs that I remember treating here at Coco's.
Hi, we're the Johnson family, and then this is Mac, and he was one of the dogs that came in from out of the cold. And then I watched his journey and how like malnourished he was and stuff, and I never really thought we would end up rescuing him, but
we really just had to persuade our dad.
I mean, most people might be timid or scared of getting a pit bull mix, but we saw him as like a dog that just deserved a second chance, some love, a family, and I thought he'd be a good fit for our family.
If he's playful, he really plays. He can go for like an hour, even, like maybe even more. It's just fun to like play with him and stuff. He's a really nice dog.
Another dog that stands out to me is this beautiful dog named Pascal. We noticed right away that his hips were kind of uneven. He had an old fracture on one of his legs. His leg was completely bent, but also his pelvis was broken in several areas. Most likely those injuries were from being hit by a car. We also found that he had a bullet fragment in his upper right shoulder area. So not only was he probably hit by a car, but somebody had shot this dog. So we went ahead and did a surgery on his left hip that was damaged. Kind of worked with him on that, some physical therapy and some laser treatments on that to kind of get him better. And he gained around 10 pounds too before he got adopted. And he actually stayed in his foster home for quite some time and ended up that they fell in love with him and kept him, which is always a fun, happy ending to the story.
Hi, we're the Jensen family, and this is Pascal.
He was one of the 400 and some dogs that came in. He was very broken and sad, but I will say when you opened the cage, he fell into your arms, he wanted hugs, he wanted kisses, and we decided to bring him home right after Thanksgiving, and he's never left.
When you provide the right opportunity for a dog in the right atmosphere, they can flourish, and I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned through this entire process is there's a home for everybody. You just have to provide a tremendous amount of love and time and care and dedication.
One that stands out to me was this little dog named Beefer. And he was a really, really sweet guy. He's a little Frenchie, and he came to us in March of this year, and he had kind of the typical brachycephalic dog issues. His little nostrils were pinched almost completely shut. Basically, every time he breathed in, he was sucking air through like the tiniest little cocktail straw. And as a result, he kind of had a flared out rib cage, and he was really underweight. But another thing that Beefer had going on was that he kept regurgitating food up. Started him on a bunch of medications to kind of help mitigate those symptoms, but really what he needed was to have endoscopy. I think the very first time I saw him, we ended up taking 5 or 6 x-rays of him and doing a barium series swallow to see if we could see what was going on with his esophagus. And we took care of his nostrils, we took care of his soft palate. He had a really rough recovery after that because, as you can imagine, he was having a hard time breathing to begin with, and then we put him under anesthesia, and now everything's inflamed down there, and he had a lot of regurgitations. We did end up getting him in to see a specialist, and he got to have his endoscopy procedure done where they took some biopsies. We ended up having to put him on a special diet and a steroid to help decrease the inflammation that was going on in his stomach and his esophagus and in his upper GI tract. Soon after we started him on those medications, his symptoms almost completely resolved. He was able to eat, he was able to keep food down, and he started to gain weight and just seemed to really start to thrive and do well. And it was really nice to be able to go through all that and help him and get him adopted out where he is now and living a happy life.
We're Nicole and Dale, and this is Beef and his sister Josie. She was lonely and we wanted another squishy face dog. And we found Beef's story on Coco's Heart's website and ended up having a meet and greet with Beef shortly after, fell in love, and actually ended up keeping him the same day.
You know, he was going through some medical issues, not being able to hold food down, and since then we've actually gotten him off all of his medications and got him on really good food, and he gained a bunch of weight and he looks pretty healthy and he's having fun.
As he's adapted to our lifestyle, he has come out of his shell and he starts to do crazy Beef antics, and so he's got way more personality than he did on day 1 or day 5.
It's really cool to be able to give a pet like this a home and see him come out of his shell and just be happy, you know, like they deserve to be happy too.
I mean, I think the biggest thing Beef adds is just companionship for her, and have somebody to play with and hang out with, and they snuggle and they do all of the things that dogs should do, and so it's good to see how he has changed her life. You know, his story is just kind of the resilience that come from not giving up on these guys.
A lot of rescues and shelters might say, well, gosh, if this one leg, for example, is bad and isn't good, we should just remove the leg. Or if this dog is really sick, we should just put it to sleep rather than spending all of that money on this one animal. But Ashley is very dedicated to each and every single animal that comes through the doors here, and has made a commitment to do everything that we possibly can for each and every one of them, regardless of how much it costs. And that's something that's extremely unique and extremely rewarding as a veterinarian to be able to offer. We have the power of the community kind of rallying around us and helping us to save these animals one at a time, and helping us raise that money so that we can save them when they need these expensive procedures done, which is really great.